What's going on, everybody? It's your boy C4 today, continuing with the draft season here on Beast Mode TV. Today we'll be taking a look at the wide receivers and the tight ends. Yes, we grouped them together for the upcoming 2017 NFL Draft. As always, guys, we had 100 likes on this video. Tomorrow we will be doing the offensive line. Not the most sexy of positions to talk about, but there's a lot of fans of you guys out there that teams need to get an offensive line. So I'm going to do my best to rank them and give you guys some pro comparisons of what you can expect. So 100 likes, and that will come out tomorrow. So for today, we're going to jump right in. We'll start with the tight ends, and then we'll work into our wide receivers. For the tight ends, I'm just going to go top three. There's a lot. There's actually draft guys here that I think is a little bit underrated for the tight ends. I think there's plenty of talent there, but we'll just go on the top three, and then we'll break into the top five wide receivers, and then we'll hand out a couple of tags, maybe awards, however you want to describe those at the end of the video. So we'll start with the top three tight ends. At number 3, your boy C4 is ranking David Njoku from Miami. 6'4", 245 pounds. On the season, he had 43 receptions, 700 yards, and 8 touchdowns. It kind of came out of nowhere. He's a redshirt sophomore. I think maybe he's making the smart decision because this tight end class is truly lacking elite pass-catching tight ends. I think there's a bunch of tight ends that people are saying like they could be elite, but I think with Njoku, he does do enough in the run blocking game that he could get drafted higher than other guys that are straight up receivers. And I think with him, the pro comparison, I'm giving Dwayne Allen when Dwayne Allen was coming out of Clemson. Very similar stat lines the year they came out, similar sizes, similar type players. I definitely think he has a lot more upside. Like I said, he's only a redshirt sophomore, so he's the kind of guy that if he goes into a system, he shouldn't be the dude that's thrown into the starting job right away. Don't give him big minutes. Have him come in rotationally. Have him come in on pass catching downs, obvious pass catching downs, and have him work his way in. Teams that are maybe have an older tight end that they're going to be slowly looking to phase out in the next year or two is going to be a perfect spot for Njoku. I think he'd be an absolute reach to get him in the first round, but I think there's plenty of talent and a lot of upside for him if you get him in the second round. I think he probably has the most upside, I think, out of any of the tight end prospects. This is why we put him here at number 3. I think I saw 2 games of the U, and he was making a lot of big-time plays, even with inconsistent play from Brad Kaya. I think Kaya probably hurt his draft stock more than any other quarterback in this year's draft class. I think if you had a little bit better quarterback there at Miami, maybe you put like a Ja'Cory Harris back there, there's a name for you, he would have had a bigger year. Rest in peace, Ja'Cory. I don't know what the fuck he's doing. Anyways, moving on to number 2. I'm going with, this is slightly a hot take, I'm going with Evan Ingram, the tight end from Ole Miss. 6'3", 240 pounds, had 65 receptions, 900 yards, and 8 touchdowns last year. Debatably was Chad Kelly's favorite target during the final year there at Ole Miss. I think the pro comparison from him is Jordan Reed light. That's a comparison that's thrown around a lot of mock draft sites, and it's very, very true. I think, actually, to be honest, I'm a Gator fan, watch a lot of Jordan Reed. I think Ingram is a better product right now coming out of the draft than Jordan Reed was coming out of Florida. Obviously, Jordan Reed's now one of the best tight ends in the NFL. I'm not coming out and saying Ingram is going to instantly come in and put up Jordan Reed-like numbers, but as seeing where we know where Jordan Reed is now, I think Ingram is a better prospect coming out of the draft than Reed was coming out of Florida. Again, 235 pounds. What is he really going to give you in terms of run blocking and pass blocking? Not a whole lot, but if you're drafting him, you're going for a receiving tight end. I think he probably is my number 1 receiving tight end. So a lot of people have Jordan Leggett from Clemson here. There's a guy named Gerald Everett from South Alabama that's rising up, supposedly a lot of people's draft boards. But for me, Evan Ingram is the best pure pass-catching tight end in this year's draft class, which is why we have him at number 2. And going at number 1, it's going to be O.J. Howard from Alabama. 6'6", 251 pounds. On the year, 37 receptions, 445 yards, 2 touchdowns. So, the stat line is in there. But when you see a guy that's this fucking big, this, like 6'6", 250, that is, like, if you're making a goddamn creative player for tight end, that's the size that you're going to want. His production is the only thing that's a little bit worrisome, but, how much does really Alabama throw the ball to their tight ends? Not a whole lot, but I just think for the pro comparison, I'm going to give him Martellus Bennett, except I think Howard has better run blocking. I think with that size, he's really committed over the last year to really establishing himself as not a liability in the run blocking game. He wasn't on the field a whole lot. I think that's just maybe because I don't know what the fuck, to be honest with you. Who knows what Lane Kiffin does? But I think the potential, like the fact that he's been there since a freshman with Alabama, playing at a very high level. He knows how to win. He's a winner. He has a winning mentality. He has the intangibles that you want, the work ethic to not only just settle on his laurels and be that 6'6", 250-pound glorified wide receiver, that he worked on getting some pass protection, some run blocking down. I think he is maybe the best tight end prospect I have seen in a couple years in terms of like right now, he's the best in the class, but I still think if you had to say what tight end might have the best potential, I know I said Joku at Miami, it still might be OJ Howard. I don't think what we're seeing right now is the finished product. So if you're a tight end hungry team, a TE hungry team, you're gonna go for OJ Howard. I think he's a beast. So that does it for the tight ends. Let me know what you guys think at this point of where I graded my tight ends. Like I said, notably I'm missing Jordan Leggett. He could be there. Bucky Hodges, another dude from Virginia Tech. Jake Butt, who probably would have made this list if he didn't suffer that injury, which brings more questions. Should seniors sit out or whatever if you're getting ready to declare? Should they sit out the bowl game? Which is disappointing. I think Jake Butt could be a nice one. I mean, Jeremy Sprinkle from Arkansas is also really, really solid. Tyrone Swoops making the switch from quarterback to tight end from Texas. He's a great project. But these guys here are my 3 tight ends. So now let's jump right into the wide receivers. So with the wide receivers, this is a very, very good draft class. I think the strengths of this draft class tend to be on the offensive side of the ball anyways, running back and wide receiver, which hasn't been the case the last couple years. And for the wide receivers, there's plenty of guys. This is very difficult to narrow it down to my top 5. There's a bunch of guys outside of the top 5. Guys are projected to go 3rd, 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th round that I am very, very big fans of, and I think will make an impact not only as as eventually as a career NFL player, but maybe even in the rookie season. Take a little sip here. But we will start at number 5. And at number 5, it pains me to do this because the Philadelphia Eagles have got burnt so many times on these guys, but I'm gonna go Juju Smith-Schuster from USC, 6'2", 215 pounds. His last year at USC, 70 receptions, 914 yards, and 10 receiving touchdowns. My pro comparison from him is Alshon Jeffrey when he was at South Carolina. I think he's a leaner Alshon Jeffrey because if you remember, Alshon Jeffrey was fat as fuck. Like, he was like 240 goddamn pounds. Then I think he lost like 20 pounds before the combine and stuff like that. Had some issues going on that, which obviously Juju Smith-Schuster doesn't have. But in terms of just a prospect, very, very similar. They're both from SC. Oh, that's a funny little fucking comparison right there. But the way I see it, they're not burners. They have good speed, but I just think the jump ball is where they excel the most. I think both these guys with the ball in their hands, they run almost like a tight end running back hybrid. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster has one of the nastiest stiff arms I've ever seen in college football, and I think just because of the size and the strength and power that he has and explosiveness, he may be able to buck the trend of USC wide receiver busts. Well, I mean, there's not that many. It's just if you come to fucking Philadelphia, you are. Elson Aguilar. But yeah, I think Juju Smith-Schuster is solid. I just don't want him on the Eagles. That's all we have at number 5. Number 4, we're going with John Ross from Washington, 5'11", 190 pounds on the year, 81 receptions, 1,150 receiving yards to go along with 17 receiving touchdowns. For a small guy, he was very, very efficient in the red zone for the University of Washington. My pro comparison from him, the reason why I have him number 4 over the number 3 guy, which is pretty much a hot take. I don't see many people that rank have my rankings, which is good. Obviously, you're coming to see some differences here. I think I'm not sold. He just hasn't. He has injuries and stuff like that. He just hasn't had the consistency that I like. I'm a big skeptic, seeing that we've got burned on wide receivers in the past. Wide receivers that don't have, a bunch of years, a big body of work. That's probably the best way to compare it. Whereas John Ross, really, he just has this year with Washington when him and Jake Browning were going off. For his pro comparison, I think he has a ceiling of a T.Y. Hilton type from the Colts, but I also could see him having the floor of a Tavon Austin. The talent is there. He's definitely an NFL talent, but I could see him being in Austin and it being like a gimmicky, he does a little bit of everything. And I think you'd find most Rams fans aren't satisfied with Tavon Austin. They're still in the searching for a wide receiver, and Austin's like, he plays everything. Running back. Well, I mean, that's not what you want. You want a guy that fucking just lines up on the outside, can beat his man, and can be a deep threat for your quarterback. And that's not really what you're seeing with Tavon Austin right now. But also, if he does, if this 1 year wasn't a flash of the pan, I could totally see the similarities between him and very, very good. I think he's actually number 1 in receiving yards this year in the NFL. T.Y. Hilton from the Indianapolis Colts. I remember T.Y. coming out of Florida. What was he, FIU? Florida National? Or was he Florida Atlantic? One of the two. He was very, very solid, good similarities. I think John Ross is one of those guys that could certainly help his draft stock by running a good 40 time. I think most of these mock draft websites have him running a 4.5. Which I think for a guy like him, where he's known to be a burner, he's only 190 pounds, you're going to want to see something in the 4.4s for sure. Going to number 3. Very similar wide receiver. I just like the bigger body of work, and I think he's safer. D.D. Westbrook from Oklahoma, 5'11", 175 pounds on the year. He had 80 receptions, 1,500 yards, and 17 receiving touchdowns. So almost really similar stat lines ish to John Ross. I'd say Oklahoma probably had a little bit better offense and they threw the ball a little bit more than what you saw in Washington. But in terms of competition, pretty similar. And my pro comparison for D.D. Westbrook is Deshaun Jackson when Deshaun Jackson was at Cal. I don't like the notion that D.D. Westbrook can only play slot. You see a lot of the reviews of people that broke down these wide receivers. They have D.D. Westbrook can only play out of the slot. I think he has the speed, and he has I think the really underrated part of his game is his tracking ability. He sees the ball up, he'll go get it. He is great. I don't know what the proper term would be, vision, I guess, of seeing the ball in the air, making adjustments, and coming down with the catch. And I think just classifying him solely as a slot wide receiver, you're just looking at the size, and you're not really looking at the tape. Sure, he's going to excel in the slot in the NFL, and that's probably where he should start until he can actually bulk up a little bit and get into that 190 range. But maybe he will. Maybe for the combine, he'll be a little bit bigger and see that's what a lot of scouts really want to see right now from D.D. Westbrook is can he add 10 pounds? 185 is not as bad. That's about T.Y. Hilton's size right now in the NFL. But I just see the deep threat playmaking ability of Deshaun Jackson all over D.D. Westbrook. And for a second round pick, love it. Absolutely all over it. Go to number 2. I really like him, but I can't give him the number 1 spot as of right now. Number 2 is going to be Corey Davis from Western Michigan, 6'3", 215 pounds on the year, 97 receptions, 1,500 yards, and 19 touchdowns. The pro comparison from him, I'm going to go with a little bit of I try to give college players, but sometimes there's just not really a college player that I want to do the first player that comes to mind when I see them play, and what I see is Demaryius Thomas, not in college, but in the NFL with the Denver Broncos. Just put him in, what you saw when he was with Peyton Manning or something like that. I just see that. I think he has a relatively safe floor, kind of like Demaryius Thomas, where he came from Georgia Tech. Kind of some questions over the offense he came from, more so, but the level of competition. That's why I just couldn't put Corey Davis at number 1, is because when you see who the number 1 guy plays, and you just compare it with the guys that Western Michigan would have played, that's the tiebreaker. That's probably the best way I can put it. That's the only real separating factor. I think both the top 2 wide receivers in this year's draft class are going to be very good in the NFL. I think they do have some weaknesses. They're definitely not finished products by any means, but both these guys can come in and they will be starting outside wide receivers in the NFL. And I think if you're a team that's in need of a wide receiver, Corey Davis is certainly a guy that you will be excited to get come draft day. Some highlight reel catches, great consistency with his hands. I know some people try to say, oh, he has some drops. I didn't see very many drops in Western Michigan. I didn't watch a whole lot of games. Not like coming at you like I watch all fucking, I've actually seen 38 games of Corey Davis. Well, I've seen probably 3 or 4 consistent games about them. I want to watch him play when they play their strongest competition, because that's the closest resemblance that you're going to get to Mike Williams, who we'll talk about at number 1, because he's played the best of the best for the most part in the ACC and played in those big games in the college playoffs. So with Corey Davis, I just think that's the reason why he's in number 2 is the level of competition, but he's going to be a great wide receiver in the NFL. And, relating back to my Philadelphia Eagles, would be very satisfied having him on the team. But the number 1 overall wide receiver, as of now, like I said, a lot can change, especially at the wide receiver position with the combine. Combine is very important for wide receivers in terms of improving their draft stock. But for number 1, I'm going Mike Williams from Clemson, 6'3", 225 pounds, 98 receptions on the season, 1,360 receiving yards, and 11 touchdowns. So not as good of a stat line as Corey Davis, but the team, then again, doesn't throw the ball, I would say, nearly as much as Western Michigan. Row the boat. For the pro comparison for Mike Williams, I'm going with Brandon Marshall in the NFL. I've seen a lot of comparisons between Williams and Davis. People are like, oh, he looks like Andre Johnson. Oh, he looks like Terrell Owens and stuff like that. I want to try to relate to someone that's currently in the NFL to make it the easiest comparison for you guys that are watching. I see it Brandon Marshall in the NFL. Brandon Marshall come out of college, not so much because he played a little bit of defense. Brandon Marshall played, I don't know if it was free or strong safety, but he was coming out as a 3rd, 4th round project wide receiver type. But Brandon Marshall in the NFL, that's what I see for Mike Williams. I see, if he can get rid of some of the bad tendencies that he's had at Clemson, which is not very much. There wasn't a whole lot of things that he wasn't bad at, or that he wasn't good at. Sorry. I think he is going to be. I just think that in comparison, it's exactly what I just said with the Corey Davis point. I think the tiebreaker is that you saw Mike Williams. Okay, wait. You saw Corey Davis. Who'd they play? They played Oklahoma. Not a bad team at all. Not a bad defense at all. He looked pretty good. But then you saw Mike Williams consistently playing against the top teams. Florida State playing. Then he went into the fucking playoffs. Had to beat Ohio State. bodied Ohio State, playing a bunch of guys that are going to be in the NFL. Then they bodied, and Mike Williams had phenomenal catches against Alabama, a team full of NFL caliber players. I think when it's that close, that has to be the deciding factor to give a guy an edge over another one. The fact that he was playing against consistent NFL talent while he was at Clemson, making big-time plays, whereas Corey Davis didn't play the near-high level of talent. But then again, you can bring up the whole Carson Wentz thing. Carson Wentz played literally shit all in Div 2, and then maybe, in my honest opinion, my biased opinion, best rookie quarterback last season in the NFL. So, I mean, you can always stretch it so much, but that is my personal opinion of putting Mike Williams at number 1, and my pro comparison is Brandon Marshall. Big body wide receiver. I think he has solid size. He's a guy that can certainly improve his draft stock on whatever he runs his 40. He'll probably run a 4.5. I mean, he's almost 230 pounds. That's a big body motherfucker. But I think, I think he has also the safest, which is why we're going into the kind of awards, if you will, of where I'm going to grade these guys. So for the most NFL ready, I'm going with Mike Williams. I think, the biggest problem with Mike Williams, which I was going to talk about the point, but I want to save it for here, is getting separation. People are wondering, will he be able to get separation at the next level? I don't think that's as big of a concern as a lot of people think. He has the strength. I think at 225 pounds, once you see him at the combine, we'll get a little bit better gauge of if he will be able to get that separation. I think he's strong enough to be able to do it, and he has a great, great aerial adjuster. He can jump up, and he'll get that ball for you guys. So I think he has the most potential right now to be the NFL-ready day one starter out of all these guys. For bust, and I'm going to have to give it to John Ross and Juju Smith-Schuster, just because John Ross didn't play enough, doesn't have a big body of work, so he could be a one-year wonder type player that turns into be like a wide receiver 3 or something for an NFL career. And then I just have to throw Juju Smith-Schuster in because of the Nelson Aguilar. Fuck you, USC wide receivers. Then again, I wouldn't be upset if Juju Smith-Schuster can buck the trend. Biggest potential, got to be Corey Davis. I think he has a higher ceiling than any player else in the first round that's being mocked and projected to go in the first round. And for sleeper, there's plenty of sleepers like in the mid to late rounds, which I'll talk about here. I'm going through the list of guys that I like. What do we got here? I like Quincy Adebayo from Ole Miss. He's projected to go undrafted. I like Amba Etetawo from Syracuse. He's projected to go in the 5th or 6th round. Chad Hansen, another guy from Cal's looking good. I think Ryan Switzer from North Carolina will be solid. He's 4th, 5th round. Carlos Henderson from LA Tech, 4th, 5th round. He's solid. What else we got here? Chris Godwin from Penn State, projected to go 3rd round. I'm looking at CBS Sports. Isaiah Ford from Virginia Tech, 2nd, 3rd round. That could be an absolute steal. But the number 1 guy, just because there's so many guys that are in that first round talent mold, a guy that could be on the outside looking in, that may end up being the best of the entire wide receiver class. I'm going with Ardarius Stewart from Alabama, 6 feet tall, 204 pounds. I think he declared because he had some medical issues. He needs to try to get some money for his family. So he's doing it all for the right reasons. He's going to have added motivation. He always looked like one of the most dynamic wide receivers on an Alabama team that has Calvin Ridley, a guy that some people are comparing to be the next, Julio Jones, the next Amari Cooper, the next great Alabama wide receiver. I personally liked Ardarius Stewart this year more than I like Calvin Ridley. I don't know. Call me fucking biased. I don't give a shit. I hate Alabama players. So I was looking at this game trying to be super critical, and Stewart stood out on me for tape more than a guy like Calvin Ridley, who may have a little bit more hype behind him. So I think he may be the type of guy that could end up being the overall best wide receiver when it's all said and done at the end of the 2017-2018 NFL season. So that there, guys, we'll do it here for my wide receiver and tight end rankings. As always, if it's your first time stopping by and you enjoyed the content, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, 100 likes, and tomorrow we will do the offensive line. Leave a comment in the comment section below if you agree or disagree with my ranking. Get the conversation going. And until next time, it's your boy.